Well, speaking of rivalries, the man who is one of the kings of rivalries is looking to maybe make a UFC comeback. Nick Diaz, shockingly, has come out of nowhere. He spoke to Ariel Helwani. He apparently did a 12-week training camp, a test weight cut. He's in the, whatever it means, 165 to 175 range. I don't know what that means. Mm-hmm. But regardless, he is planning to come back in early 2021. The two big questions are, first of all, should he be coming back? And second of all, if he does, who should he fight?
I think the should be, only he knows. I mean, he's been party animal the last few years.
I said, who should he fight? Not who does he want to fight. That's not what I asked.
No, I mean, for should he come to fight? He's the only one who can really make that judgment. I mean, we've seen him partying, but listen, you can spend a few years partying and then clean yourself up and be like perfectly healthy after like a year of just like healthing up. We all know this. We're university students.
Yeah, I think he should come back. I mean, like, why not? He is always such an entertaining fighter to watch. All of the buildup is super, super fun, and he's a great fighter. And, you know, like, is he past his prime? Probably. Are there still fun fights for him? For sure.
Yeah.
I personally don't like it, if I'm being honest. I think
you don't like any of the old guys.
No, look,
you don't, Roey. Hey, we need to have a serious conversation about your ageism.
Let me tell you why. The man hasn't fought in, I think, what is it, 5 years now? 6 years?
I think 8 years.
8 years? Yeah. Look, the man hasn't fought in 8 years. So yeah, he hasn't taken damage in 8 years, but he took a lot of damage beforehand. And he, as a 30-year-old, wasn't your typical 30-year-old. He had fought since he was like 18, 19 years old professionally all the time. He was a guy who did take a lot of damage.
5 years, excuse me.
He was always a guy who everyone was a little bit hesitant about in terms of what did he have CTE? Is he in the right state of mind? And when you haven't fought for that long and you spent all this time damaging your brain and your body by the partying, yeah, we can recover, Noah, off after you party for a while, but we're 20-something years old, not 36 years old. Like, it's very, very different, and we've been partying for a lot less time than he has. I just don't love the idea of a 36-year-old coming back, and also for what? He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need anything. So I think if you are going to have him come back,
so what? He wants to do it. Fighting is fun.
Then he shouldn't be fighting in the UFC. I think him going to Bellator could be fun. Him going and fight. I don't want to see him fight these top 10 guys. I don't want to see him fighting a Leon Edwards.
Who's to say he's even going to make it into the top 10? Maybe he just wants to fight. He just wants to have some scraps.
But if you're just coming in to have some scraps, the UFC is not the place to do it. In the UFC, you're fed to the hungry lions, you're fed to the wolves, and you're. I think the only person
I'm okay. So he sinks or swims.
I have two people I can see. I'm okay with him coming back against. Anderson Silva rematch, I'd be okay with. And the other one, this is an interesting one, Dan Hardy, who's also talking to come back.
Dan, you throw Dan Hardy in there first?
Dan Hardy's already saying he wants to come back.
Yeah, I know.
But he's going to come back. Put him against a guy who's also old, past his prime.
I don't think I would be able to say I prefer Dan Hardy back in the UFC over Nick Diaz.
I'm not saying one or the other. I don't know if I like one better than the other. If they're both going to come back, give them each other. And I think that Dan Hardy's in a much better shape than Nick Diaz. Absolutely.
Okay, so I think the point that you make that to know what state he's in is very important. Like I agree with that. I think that if maybe there was an interview that came out or some footage of him training, like that would sort of shift our viewpoints a little bit differently.
Yeah, but we don't really know anything yet.
Right, but like in my mind, I'm hoping that he, like, just seeing the little short clip of him flexing his muscles and looking super lean and ripped, like I feel like he could come back. He is a incredible fighter, has incredible jiu-jitsu and incredible boxing. Fought with top title contenders and competitors, and I think there's a lot of great fights for him. I don't think he would be easily steamrolled.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested in it. He'll sink or swim, and if he sinks, then maybe he'll join another organization.
I was just going to say quickly, the UFC is the best place for him by far. That's where he built his name, and he would. There's no point in trying to attach his name to something like Bellator or ONE FC when like the Diaz brothers are born bred in the UFC.
I mean, I'm just saying that the UFC is not a place for half-assing it. You're all in, you're all out. And on Noah's point, Noah, I need to respond to your accusations here because you say I don't like the old men. Here's what I don't like. I don't like people fighting once they don't have a chance of winning a title. I think fighting, unless you're maybe saying it's just for the money, and if you're going to do it for the money, go to Bellator and make more money. I think that fighting is a young man's game or a young person's game. And once you're past the point of winning a title, I don't need to see someone take more damage and destroy their future. I want to see someone like the Diaz brothers who are successful enough to move on with their lives and be healthy and live the next 6 years of their life healthy. I would much rather than live the next 20 years of their lives semi-healthy, 10 years in with severe dementia, and then die at the age of 55. I don't need to see that. I don't want to see these guys with Parkinson's if I don't have to. And of course, everyone's going to take damage. I just don't like what I would call unnecessary damage, especially with guys that don't need the money. The BJ Penn situations, I don't want to see happen. The Anderson Silva, I don't want to see happen. Anderson Silva should have retired after the Adesanya fight. Absolutely.
You've really managed to frame a very controversial opinion in a very reasonable way, because I absolutely disagree that like you shouldn't be like, okay, it shouldn't be like you have to either be gunning for the title or you're out. I disagree with that. I think that there's absolutely room for journeymen, and there's absolutely room for people who just know I'm a fighter. I'm a good fighter. I don't know if I'm going to be a championship caliber fighter, but I'm a comfortable fighter and I want to have a career. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that, yeah, absolutely UFC is a place for that. Why not? There's hundreds of fighters in the UFC. They're not all getting that title. They're not all gunning for it.
But but when you're an old guy in the UFC, who do they give you? They give you the young, hungry lion to try to build your name off of them. So you need to understand that at the very least and know what you're fighting for. Maybe you might know you're not going to get a belt. Maybe you're a guy who might just be doing it because he likes it and wants some more money and it makes sense. But you still need to know when to call it quits. Coming back just because you feel like it is not something you should be doing in the UFC. Coming back because you feel like it, you should be doing against lesser opponents. That's why a Bellator, where you can put on some more like kind of circus show fights, the Anderson Silva against Nick Diaz, or these really just older guys that are past their prime.
Circus show fights.
That
would earn you a slap from Nick Diaz.
The fun fights. You know what I mean? Like these fights that don't necessarily mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but are just fun to see. We've always wanted to watch.
I guess I fully understand where you're at, and you've backed it up pretty well. So in that, I got you, but I still just don't agree with you. At the end of the day, I'd have to see him fight in the UFC and give it his best, and if he loses, he loses. I don't think that the UFC is going to let someone fight if they're looking like Chuck Liddell in his come up to like the Tito Ortiz. I think that there are I would guess, I don't know how it works, but I would guess that the UFC has at least done some level of scouting for Nick to be like, okay, yeah, you're still somewhat capable. Like Dana would not let Chuck Liddell in if he was when he's putting out pictures of him, like videos of him working the bag like he was.
I don't know how much they know.
If they would do that, it remains to be seen, because Dana's a ruthless, cutthroat businessman, but all we have here is his word to go on, and he did say, he would not have allowed Chuck to get in there and fight again.
You cannot compare the situations. The age is so different. The amount of damage they took was so different. The circumstances in which they left the UFC is way different. I don't think that's comparable.
I think the big equalizer there that made Dana especially come out and say this all comes out after this footage of Chuck working the bag and looking like a disgusting.
Yeah,
if he had videos and he was working the bag like JDS back in the day, then there would be no controversy.
But there's no videos.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. I think that it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit quick to jump the gun and say no, Nick, let's wait and see what he has to put out there for the world. For all we know, it could just be a bunch of hot gas anyways. He could just be saying, yeah, I'm going to do the UFC. And then we could, for all we know, we could never hear about it again.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.